of handmade business can be tough when trying to monetize what you love. We've got truth bombs and motivation to help you find your way through. Passion to profit, let's start today, 'cause the world needs what you create. Tune in right now, it's your shot to learn how to be a handmade boss.
Imagine that you had a store where you sold items from hundreds of different makers all under one roof. You made money every time one of them sold, and you charged them a little bit of rent for the space as well. Now, how would you make sure that you stayed afloat and kept in business? You would probably prioritize items that grabbed people's attentions and people bought over and over again. This is what Etsy is doing. The question is, how do we get the Flavor of the Month award and we get prioritized in search results? If you are sick and tired of seeing the major clickbaity videos that say, the algorithm is changing, oh my God, then today in the 2024 Q4 big update video, we're going to be talking about what this actually means. And newsflash, it's not as big of a deal as a lot of other YouTube creators has made it out to be. But you need to know what the crux of the changes are and what you actually need to know. So in today's episode of the big update, we're going to be talking about Etsy and Instagram and all of the updates that you need to know about. So if you like the sound of this, please do not forget to like and subscribe to my channel, because over 80,000 people every single week will listen to my podcast, watch YouTube, watch my reels, watch my lives, and all that kind of good stuff as well. So if you fancy a little piece of that action, then subscribe, follow me on Instagram, and do all of the good stuff. Hi everyone, if you're new around here, my name is Steph, and I help makers to start, run, and scale their handmade business from expensive hobby to consistent 4 and 5 figure months on Etsy, but also on your own website as well. So let's first talk about Etsy. So Etsy has announced an algorithm change from October the 1st. So here's what you actually need to know. So search analytics beta has gone. So if you remember, there was that really weird tool called Search Analytics that always seemed to be in beta mode and never really gave you any decent information. Well, that is now done and died. And instead, we have something called the Search Visibility page, which sounds really fancy, but it is kind of a little bit more helpful in some ways, but not in others. So if you want to find where that tool is, if you go to your behind the scenes of your Etsy shop in your dashboard, left-hand side menu, you will find that there. This is meant to give you hints and tips about improving your listings, what Etsy wants to see from you. But to be honest with you, a lot of it is stuff that we've been saying for years, right? It's not really super helpful, and some people have been finding it really super basic and not really digging into all of the nitty-gritty data that people want to see. So the reason why Etsy has done this is because sellers have continuously said that they want more insight as to how shops are ranked, and I can't say I really blame them, but I'm not sure that this search visibility tool is actually going to cut it, if I'm being completely honest. I feel like it's just kind of rehashing the same data that we've already known, bar one important change, which I am going to mention in a bit. And I just really feel as if a lot of this stuff people already know about, especially if you've been watching me for a little while. It's all stuff that we've been saying for literally years. So you feel free to use it for sure, but I do feel like it is pretty basic. Basically, the premise behind this is that when you go there, it will flag up errors or issues basically that you need to look at that may affect your ranking. So if you are someone that dips in and out of Etsy and you're not someone who really likes to go into the nitty-gritty of how it all works and to really optimize every single way that you possibly can, then this tool is going to be great for you because you can just dip in and out, find what you need to do, and go again. So Etsy have kind of refreshed what this visibility tool really means for you and what you need to focus on. So in order for them to be, I suppose, a little bit more transparent, they've kind of said, okay, here are two main areas where we are being a little bit more transparent as to what things get you to rank. Now notice that there's no algorithm change, bar one little thing. But again, I am going to talk about that in a minute. There's no mention of algorithm changes here, okay? And as I go through this list, you're going to be like, I knew this already, so it's not really that much of a change. So the two headings are customer service and your listings. So average review star rating of 4 or 5 stars, big thumbs up. Message responded to. The first message from people needs to be responded to within 48 hours, thumbs up. Cases where you don't meet customer service standards, this is a thumbs down. This can possibly ding you. And cases that really matter here are where the refund payment was taken from your payment account and not cases covered by the Etsy Purchase Protection Program. So that is a really nice distinction, because I feel like loads of people were getting really worried because the Etsy Purchase Protection Program was there to protect both parties, but they have specifically said that it's only really cases that ding you where the refund payment has had to come out of your payment account, aka you were at fault. And also on-time dispatch and tracking. Now, I personally in my shop have been testing this because I actually think that so many people kind of discount the on-time dispatch and tracking and kind of just go, yeah, I do everything else. Like, I'm not really worrying about that. But I've recently been dispatching my orders like a day late. And I know this is probably not great, but I have told the customers it's all good. But I really wanted to test this theory. Let me tell you, the results are in, and it's a lot more important than you think it is. All right. Because literally my shop ranking, I wouldn't say ranking, I'd say more where I sit in the search results. My orders basically tanked after I just dispatched one order late and I failed to put a tracking number in. Halfway through the test, I was like, right, I need to get things back on track again. And things are still really, really slow. So one piece of advice that I would say is to make sure you are at least dispatching your orders on time and putting some kind of tracking in there, because this is a big deal and it does heavily ding you in the test that I've done. The next heading is your listings. Now, what I'm going to say here is photos are the next big thing for where you rank within Etsy. It seems as if they are really wanting sellers to make sure images are clean, they are crisp, they are well lit, and it is clear what the person is buying. Now, there's been a lot of speculations around mock-ups, around putting text and images. All Etsy has said is don't use mock-ups unless you need to, aka you are getting things printed, you don't have the physical item there with you. Now, my piece of advice, and I know I'm going to get a lot of messages, comments, DMs about this. If you do pod, my piece of advice is if you possibly can swing it, to take your own photos, or at the very least, take your own mock-up pictures. Get a professional in to help you if need be. Because honestly, the problem that we are seeing and that we are having a lot of is people are downloading and using the same mock-up images over and over and over again. So what is happening is that pod shops are all looking the same, which is not what Etsy wants. And really, it means that your conversion rate is going to drop, and therefore your listings in the search results are going to go boo. So my advice would be to get the actual item printed in front of you. And, you know, by doing this, at least you have some kind of content for social media. You have some kind of like imagery. You have the product with you physically that you can use here. But if you can't swing that for whatever reason, this is where really my advice to you would be to get a professional photographer in and create your own mock-ups. If you explain to them what it is that you want, they will immediately know, and they'll know the gist of things. Let's say you sell sweatshirts. Is it you only need to buy one in each color, stick it on a model, take the picture, and then you create your own mock-up. As well as that, text on images. Now, it doesn't need to be that much text, all right? Because you know that for me in the past, that when you have a really clear USP that's not coming across in the product pictures itself, you might want to put a little bit of text in there. But they're not against that. What they're saying is when you have text-heavy images. So those people who sell downloadables, be careful. Don't put a lot of confusing text in there, because when Etsy is run tests, they can see that people are not clicking on these, they're not buying them. Okay, the next thing is return policies, only if it's required by where you live. All right, this is really important and actually dings you for your ranking more than any of us initially thought. So make sure you have some kind of return policy. Right, so here is the thing that has changed, and I think has a lot of people panicking, right? But if you've been with me for a while, again, you know that I've been saying this for literally years, and now it's actually starting to come to light that this is a thing that does actually affect your ranking just purely because of the tests that they have run. And this is shipping costs are going to start to affect ranking. Now, for the moment, this is US only, okay? And it depends on the categories of items that you have. Because if you sell big items such as furniture or chopping boards, you're not going to be able to keep your shipping items as small as, say, jewelry, right? So starting October the 1st, US listings with domestic postage prices lower than $6, again, depending on the category that you're selling, will be prioritized in search. Now, we don't have a lot of information. I've tried to do some research as to what categories they mean. There's not a lot of information out there. So if you have this question, reach out to Etsy directly. So that is all of the changes that have come to Etsy. So as you can kind of see, what I said at the beginning of this video, where the algorithm is not actually really changing, only really with the postage thing, is kind of true. All they are basically saying is, hey, these are things that are best practices for you. And let's be honest, the best practices have always resulted in your listings converting higher, which is what we've been saying for years, which conversion rate therefore affects where you're ranking. So all they're basically saying is, hey, if you do all these things, our studies show that your listings will convert better. AKA, we see that and think, yay, we're going to put you at the front of the store. Okay, so now let's go on to Instagram. Some really interesting updates coming directly from them. So the first one is simple. Each carousel post can now include up to 20 photos and videos. Awesome. Instagram have also now confirmed from the horse's mouth that views are the central metric, aka views of your reels, views of your videos, views of everything on Instagram seem to be the main player when it comes to where you're getting pushed out and how often. So a lot of people are really focused in on followers. And the sad fact of it is that you could have 100,000 followers, but your account is not really getting pushed out to that many people because people are not viewing your stuff. So views are the central metric. Now, a new feature in broadcast channels, which I love, by the way. If you don't know what broadcast channels are, they are basically a way where you can get directly into people's inboxes that opt into it. So think of it kind of like a mini email list. And I've been loving broadcast channels, but one thing I have noticed is that you have to be giving immense value that's not found anywhere else in order to keep people in there. So what this new feature is in broadcast channels is that you can turn on reply. So people can reply back to you. So it's kind of like a two-way chat, which is really cool. Also, they have a best practices hub, which is an education hub. That's what they've called it for creators on Instagram. So this is really, really cool. It's basically a new section in the Instagram professional dashboard to give people the information that they need. So no more, I don't know what the hell I'm doing on Instagram, to optimize their content, reach more people and achieve their goals. So it's basically like the whole Etsy up thing, but for Instagram. Now, what you might find with this is you might find it might be a little bit generic. It might be kind of the thing where you already know this stuff. If you are an Instagram algorithm buff, then you might be a bit bored by this. But if you are someone who is like a bit puzzled or not really sure what on earth to do, this is going to be really useful for you. The next update for Instagram is teen accounts, which I think is a really cool addition. So this means that if you have an account that is labeled as a teen account, right, that you have built-in protections and reassurance for parents that teens are having a safe experience on Instagram. That's literally what they've said. So teen accounts will basically limit who can contact teens and the content that they see to ensure that their time is well spent. What this means is that teens under 16 will need a parent's permission to change any of the built-in protections. So really, really helpful if any many of you out there have teams that you're worried about using Instagram, what they're going to see. It's a really cool addition. All right, so let's move on to the homework chapter of this video. So when it comes to Etsy, your homework is, I want you to head to the podcast version of this and I want you to save it for later. Now, if you search how to be a handmade boss, wherever you listen to podcasts, I will be there. This episode will be there. I want you to save it because I want you to listen to it whenever you're unsure about the changes, what's coming up. And also every single week, I'm dropping some major value on this podcast/YouTube video. The second thing is I want you to do a search for what you sell on Etsy and what kind of photos come up. I like to call this the sea of mediocrity because you do not want to be in the mediocre category when it comes to search results, right? If your photos aren't eye-catching enough, retake them. Step 3, review your shipping costs because as we know, if you're in the US, for now anyway, this is going to impact where you're sitting in the search result. Number 4, I know the majority of you are doing this anyway, but I want you to see how you can improve your customer service. I really also would love it if you would like and subscribe because like I said, every week I'm dropping some mad value here and on the podcast. But for now, my loves, I shall catch you in the next one. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to How to Be a Handmade Boss. And if you're eager to boost your Etsy sales within just 7 days, then be sure to join my most popular free training at handmadebosses.com/conversion. You can also find the link in the show notes as well. Keep an eye out for our next episode where we'll be continuing our journey towards handmade business success together. And until then, keep crafting and stay inspired because the world really does need those special creations that only you can make.